Arochayan Shilamupaiti Vanaran Tajjatirasena Sunirvritendriya Parasparodvikshana Vismita. Let's do the word for word all together. Tie by them the cheaters and pretenders and so-called yogis, swamis, incarnations, and gurus. Vanchita, being cheated. Hamsa Kulam, the association of great Paramahamsas or devotees. Samabhisham, contacting. Arochayan, not being satisfied with. Shila, their behavior. Upaiti, approaches. Vanaran, the monkeys, which are all debauchees with no good character. Tatjati rasena, by sense gratification in the association of such debauchees. Sunirvrita indriya, being very satisfied with getting the opportunity of sense gratification. Paraspara, of one another. Udvikshana, by seeing the faces. Vismrita, who has forgotten. Avadi, the end of life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Being cheated by them, the living entity in the forest of the material world tries to give up the association of these so-called yogis, swamis, and incarnations and come to the association of real devotees. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master or advanced devotees. Therefore, he gives up their company and again returns to the association of monkeys, who are simply interested in sense gratification and women. He derives satisfaction by associating with sense gratifiers and enjoying sex and intoxication. In this way, he spoils his life simply by indulging in sex and intoxication. Looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers, he becomes forgetful and thus approaches death. Purport. Sometimes a foolish person becomes disgusted with bad association and comes to the association of devotees and brahmanas and takes initiation from a spiritual master. As advised by the spiritual master, he tries to follow the regulative principles, but due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master. He therefore gives up the company of devotees and goes to associate with simian people who are simply interested in sex and intoxication. Those who are so-called spiritualists are compared to monkeys. Outwardly, monkeys sometimes resemble sadhus because they live naked in the forest and pick fruits, but their only desire is to keep many female monkeys and enjoy sex life. Sometimes so-called spiritualists seeking a spiritual life come to associate with Krishna-conscious devotees, but they cannot execute the regulative principles or follow the path of spiritual life. Consequently, they leave the association of devotees and go to associate with sense gratifiers, who are compared to monkeys. Again, they revive their sex and intoxication, and looking at each other's faces, they are thus satisfied. In this way, they pass their lives up to the point of death. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, this section is describing the journey and experiences of the materialistic person in the conditioned life and all the difficulties, one difficulty after another. And the more the person tries to be happy in material ways, the more they experience difficulties, right? Like Prahlad Maharaj says that as soon as you try to endeavor for material happiness, the conditions of your distress begin. So the very attempt to be happy materially is doomed. It's doomed to failure. As soon as we just try to be materially happy, that's when our suffering starts. So instead of trying to be materially happy, we should try to be happy through serving Krishna, because that's the way that the soul can really be happy. And in order to get fully immersed in the spiritual life, it requires some detachment from material life. But then this verse that we're talking about, text 17, it's about how somebody who realizes that material life is just full of pain and misery comes to spiritual life. But then the surprising thing is that they leave and they go back into that suffering condition of material existence. And Srila Prabhupada, the verse here that in the verse Jad Bharata is saying that he gives up the company of devotees and again returns to the association of monkeys. right in the Sanskrit it says, Arochayan Shilam Upaiti Vanaram. So Vanaram is the monkeys, right? Like the Vanaras who were helping Hanuman, because they were nice Vanaras because they were serving the devotee. But this verse is referring to ordinary monkey species, or Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, simian people who are like monkeys. Because monkeys are just always doing mischief. They're always engaged in some nonsense, like in Vrindavan, they're always just trying to steal something, cause some disturbance, break things. They just take the laundry off the clothesline and rip it apart and eat the buttons and everything. And then they, of course, they're very sexually inclined and they fight with each other over the mating partner. And they're just very vicious and troublesome and disturbing, especially when they steal your glasses. So, but that's, so people fall down from the saintly platform of following regulative principles and, being with Krishna and with devotees and living a pure, regulated spiritual life to, again, becoming like monkeys. So how does that happen? So we can look at different ways that happens. And one thing is that we saw just recently in the case of Bharat Maharaj, that he was a great devotee. He was even on the platform of Bhava Bhakti. And it's not that he totally fell down and became like a monkey again, but he did have to take birth as a deer. And the reason that he had that spiritual fall down is because he didn't have association with devotees. Right? He went to the forest and he was living alone there and doing his sadhana. But because he didn't have spiritual support, then when he had when he started getting this material attachment to the deer, there was no one to really check that. There was no one to say, hey Prabhu, I think you're spending a little too much time with that deer. Are you getting your rounds done these days? So, we need devotees in our lives to gently correct our course when it looks like we're getting a little deviated. But Bharat Maharaj didn't have that, and so he ended up just getting absorbed in that deer and having to take birth as a deer, and then taking birth again as Jad Bharat. So here we have Jad Bharat. So he's remembering everything from his previous life as Bharat Maharaj, and he's actually taking all kinds of measures to avoid falling down again. So that's one thing, is that we need if we have no association, then that's almost as bad as bad association. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it said that as the devotees are compared to gardeners, and in our heart there's the bhakti lata, the creeper of devotion that we're cultivating. And there are so many things that may harm that creeper of devotion, especially in the beginning stages when it's still very small and delicate and tender. And especially when it's very fresh, then the plant is soft and sweet, right? The leaves are very soft. And so many animals like to come and nibble on the new sprouts because they're tasty. And so, different, in the beginning of spiritual life, many things come to attack us, right? Like our non-devotee friends, they try to pull us away, or family members, they try to convince us that this is not the thing to do with your life, or just our material desires come up, or, all kinds of things. Different beliefs that we have can make it difficult for us to actually embrace the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in the beginning. So all of these harmful elements are there, but the association of devotees is compared to the fence around the bhakti lata. So there are many dangers that might come to, eat or harm the creeper of devotion, but if we have a nice fence around it, like you see in Vrindavan when they plant trees, they always put a nice fence to keep those monkeys away, to keep the cows from nibbling on it, to keep people from just running over it with their vehicles, which they drive all over the place. So, so we need this fence, especially in the beginning, but really all the time, because it's always, the material world is always dangerous. Padam padam yat padam nadesham, right? A danger at every step in this material world. So we need to keep our bhakti latas, keep our spiritual lives within the fence of the association of devotees. So association is important. So if we have no association, that's dangerous. And then even worse, of course, is bad association. If we have association with non-devotees who for example, the classic example is Ajamil. So Ajamil was born in a Brahmin family, and he was doing his sadhana very nicely, assisting his parents in the worship of the household deity. And then one day he was out collecting flowers for the puja, and then he saw this low-class man who was drunk, and he was embracing a prostitute, and they were embracing and kissing and touching each other in all kinds of lustful ways. And Ajamil, he was like, whoa, what is that? Something, it kind of sparked something in him. And then he desired to experience that, that kind of relationship, and he specifically developed an attachment to that prostitute, like she's the one who can give me certain sensations that I'm all of a sudden are arising in my heart, and I'm not able to push away. So then he ended up tracking down that prostitute, marrying her, and then abandoning all of his brahminical services, and actually rejecting his parents and resorting to a sinful life just to make the prostitute happy, because she really dragged him down. So in both situations, we see that both of them were engaged in regulated spiritual practices, and both of them got dragged down to a lower level, one by no association and one by bad association. So those are some things that can make us leave Krishna consciousness. Another aspect of bad association is that we may be associating with devotees, but the devotees may be associating with us in a way that's not favorable for our spiritual life. And even senior devotees, sometimes, if they're not careful, and even if they have good intentions, may end up inadvertently being bad association, especially for new devotees. Because it's one thing, if somebody's not a devotee at all, they're just a complete materialist, and they do something or say something that's harsh or critical, or they do something that's, not nice. Then we'll think, oh, they're materialists, they're ignorant, they just don't know how to be. But if there's a senior devotee, someone who's been practicing for many years, even decades, and then they do something that's bewildering, that can be very faith-shaking, can undermine our faith, and think, oh wow, is this what's going to happen to me after decades of practicing Krishna consciousness? I'm still going to be attached to these things. Or if those devotees, are just critical or harsh in their dealings, especially with a new devotee. Sometimes, older devotees can, in trying to, feeling like I want to help this devotee to, do things right, be always correcting. Like recently someone was telling me about how he decided to put on a dhoti for the first time, come to the temple, and 4 different people told him off about how he was wearing his dhoti. Like, you have to make it so the border is visible in the back pleats, or your back pleats are twisted, or your dhoti's not long enough, you're not supposed to see the knees, or something like that. And for him, it was like, it was already a big surrender to just put that thing on, like, just for a Western person to put on a dhoti is like already like, all right, I'm really gonna do it. I'm gonna really try to please Krishna and be the Vaishnava that he wants me to be, and I'm gonna give up all my ego and what people think about me, and I'm just gonna do it for Krishna. And then the devotees that he's trying to please by putting on the dhoti are like, this is wrong, that's wrong, get it, what's wrong with you? So it can be very discouraging, and it can make the person feel like, oh my God, is this what I'm surrendering to? Is this the community that I'm joining? So it's nice to appreciate each other and be like, wow, I see that you're really trying to imbibe Vaishnava culture. This is great. And also the other thing is that, of course, the person, they eventually do need to know how to put on a dhoti properly, but it's not that everybody and their brother and sister, like every Prabhu in the temple, needs to tell them how to put on a dhoti properly. There's generally one person who that person is accepting as a mentor, or a teacher, or a guide in their spiritual life, and let that person correct them, or just ask them, oh, it's nice that you're becoming serious in Krishna consciousness. Do you have a person who's kind of like guiding you and mentoring you in this, the important early formative years of your Krishna consciousness? And then you know who that mentor is. And then if you have any concerns about that person's behavior or the way they dress or with whatever, then you can go to the mentor person and be like, hey, I have a concern about this person. I noticed this. Can you please maybe speak to him? because that's austerity of speech. Krishna talks about it in the Bhagavad Gita, that what you're saying may be truthful, it may be right, but if you're not, Prabhupada says in the purport to the verse in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita about austerity of speech, that if you're not the teacher, if that person is not your student, not your disciple, or not your ward, like you're not the guardian of that person, then you should exercise austerity of speech and don't say anything. So we need to practice that, and so that people don't feel bombarded with corrections and end up going away. That's something that can actually drive someone away from the association of devotees. So we have to be careful about that. So that's one thing, is that we're associating with devotees, but the devotees are associating with us in a way that's discouraging, and we may leave. The other way is we're associating with devotees, but we're associating with devotees in the wrong way, and we're offending the devotees. So that's Vaishnava Aparad. That's another reason why we may leave, and that's usually the main reason why we leave. So this Vaishnava Aparad, I was reading something in Madhurya Kadambini about it, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying there that Vaishnava Aparad, it applies not only to senior devotees or great devotees, but even to the newest devotees, or anyone who's trying to practice Krishna consciousness. So we have to be careful to not offend, great devotees, not offend senior devotees, but we also have to be very careful to not offend anyone who's trying to be a devotee, even if that devotee has bad behavior, even if the devotee is, even sometimes maybe breaking a regular principle or something, or seems to be, not a very nice person, but if they're trying to be a devotee, if they're trying to chant and coming to the temple, then we have to be very careful to not offend even them, because the effects of Vaishnava Aparad, even in that case, are just as strong. So yeah, he definitely brings that up. So what are the effects of Vaishnava Aparad? Is that we lose our taste for the processes of devotional service. So if we went through a phase where we were feeling really enthusiastic to chant, to do kirtan, we were getting really absorbed in our rounds, our japa, and getting a sweet taste from it, and then all of a sudden we lost that. We lost our taste for chanting. We're chanting, it's just like, ugh, how many more rounds do I have? Looking at the counting beads, like, when is this going to be over? Or just finding like we're just so distracted and no attraction. Then it could be that we committed some offense, knowingly or unknowingly. And another result of Vaishnava Aparad is that we start to take spiritual things to be ordinary, right? Like we start to see prasadam as ordinary food. We take devotees to be ordinary people, especially maybe we start thinking of our spiritual master as an ordinary person whose instructions we can just take or leave, And so that's one thing. And another thing is that our material desires become strong. Maybe we were practicing devotional service for some years and material attraction kind of went away. Like we could just walk past some, opportunity for sense enjoyment and just not be at all interested. But then after making some Vaishnava Aparad, we see that same opportunity for sense enjoyment, we're just like, wow, that looks good. I'd like to try that again, And so we become interested. And then, like the verse is saying, again, we become like monkeys, chasing after sense enjoyment in various ways. So these are some of the different ways that a devotee may become misfortunate. So yeah, this word misfortune, there's two different ways that we can be not fortunate. And one way is to be unfortunate, and the other way is to be misfortunate. So unfortunate applies to somebody who never got the chance to be a devotee, who just never met devotees, never got a book, never knew that Krishna consciousness was something that they could do with their life. So that person is unfortunate. But actually misfortunate can be even worse, because it's like you got the opportunity, but you just lost it, So this misfortunate situation of leaving Krishna consciousness is a very bad fortune. Of course, in another sense, it's better, because at least, you chanted the holy name a few times, you heard some Krishna consciousness, you took prasadam, so that will never be lost. It'll always be in your permanent spiritual bank account. But then, just for some encouragement here, there's a verse from, maybe you can go to this 10 to 32, and we'll look at 10 to 32 and 33. So 10 to 32 is a verse that, it's a famous verse that Prabhupada quotes a lot whenever he's talking about impersonalists and how impersonalists come to advanced stages of spiritual realization. Then they actually may achieve liberation, a kind of impersonal liberation where they get out of the material world and they go to spiritual world, Brahmajyoti, in the spiritual sky, and they merge there into the light. They can exist for some time, but he says that they achieve that position with great difficulty, right? In Sanskrit he says, aruya kritrena. Kritrena means very difficult. So with great difficulty they achieve this position of param padam, the transcendental position. But then patanti means that they fall down again from this position of imagined liberation, because they don't have anugraha. They don't achieve the mercy of the Lord, because they don't worship the Lord, because they don't accept the personal form of the Lord. So they always fall down. So then he's explaining that, actually he's quoting, Shukadeva Goswami is quoting Lord Brahma in this verse. And so the question may arise, because this is about all kinds of, anybody who's not a devotee, they may imagine themselves to be liberated, they may achieve like this lower stage of liberation, but they fall down because they don't have the mercy of the Lord, because only devotees approach the personal form and get the mercy of the Lord. So then someone may raise the question that, well, but does that mean that devotees never fall down? And so Lord Brahma continues in the next verse. So just go, you can go to the translation.
How about next verse?
Yeah, 33. The long purport. And just go to translation, please. So he says, O Madhava, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of the Goddess of Fortune, if devotees completely in love with you sometimes fall from the path of devotion, they do not fall like non-devotees, for you still protect them. Thus they fearlessly traverse the heads of their opponents and continue to progress in devotional service. So this is very encouraging, that even if a devotee falls down from Krishna consciousness, they don't fall down the way these other spiritualists fall down, because Krishna protects them. So we see many examples of devotees in our movement who practiced Krishna consciousness, did many years of service, and then they left. And then they may have spent several years or even decades just in material life, but then they eventually come back. And if you talk to them about what was going on for you, what was your experience, a typical answer is going to be that they really tried to enjoy material life, but they couldn't, and they would see materialistic people around them, and drinking and all kinds of intoxication, sex, getting money, buying things, going on vacations, having luxuries and comforts, eating out, eating all kinds of things, even eating meat, and thinking, and seeing how all these non-devotees were having a great time doing these activities, just really living it up, the so-called good life, eat, drink, and be merry. But when the fallen devotees would try to do the same things, they just couldn't enjoy it. They just couldn't get it would just end up being miserable. And the more they tried to enjoy themselves, the more miserable they became. But despite their misery, they were determined, to get material enjoyment, because they were, kind of a little bitter towards devotional service for whatever reason. It's like, no, I can do this. I just need to try a little harder. I just need to do the right thing. And but it just never worked. And always in the back of their mind, there was this nagging feeling like, this is not it, this is not the thing. You know very well that this is not going to make you happy. The only thing that's going to make you happy is associating with devotees, kirtan, prasadam, devotional service, having Krishna in your life. So the thing is that Krishna doesn't allow the devotee. He will allow the non-devotee to have some material enjoyment, at least for temporarily. He won't allow the devotee to have material enjoyment. He protects them from that. So that's Krishna's mercy. And so they don't fall. They may fall. They may fall away, or they may appear to be fallen because they're not following the principles of Krishna consciousness anymore. but they don't fall so hard. They fall into Krishna's safety net, right? Like they're on the, and it's really like devotional service is like walking on the tightrope, Prabhupada says spiritual life is like the razor's edge, one shaving and then one little, if you just get at the wrong angle, if you're using a blade, not like a plastic, protective thing, but if you're using, when I was married, I used to shave my husband's head with just a blade, just like a straight up razor blade. And so, when I first started doing it, I didn't have the knack of how to angle the blade, and, I cut him a few times after you get the knack of it. But, so I experienced what it's like, what Prabhupada was saying with the razor's edge, that, you just a slight, one little, like, fraction of a millimeter wrong angle, and, oh no, sorry, Prabhu. The blood's dripping. So it's like that, we have to be very careful to really be very vigilant and alert in the way that we perform our devotional service. Properly according to the principles and the mood, the attitude is very important. And following the attitude of the previous acharyas and our senior exemplary Vaishnavas. So I like the last part of this translation is saying that they fearlessly traverse the heads of their opponents and continue to progress in spiritual service. So the word here means the Sanskrit word called vinayaka. It means obstacles or impediments. So the fallen devotee is experiencing so many impediments in the path, and that's why they're fallen. That's why they became fallen. But they actually, these impediments actually become, they step on the, they step on the heads of these impediments, which means that the impediments or the obstacles actually become stepping stones, right? Like, so we see in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, when he's about to board the flower airplane back to Vaikuntha, that death personified approaches him. And death is approaching, and then death actually pays obeisances to Dhruva Maharaj, and Dhruva Maharaj steps on the head of death and uses the head of death personified as a stepping stone to board the airplane. So what we see here is that for a fallen devotee, they'll encounter so many impediments in their life, so many problems. They'll get suffering in so many ways. But the very impediments in their attempt to enjoy materially become stepping stones that bring them back to the spiritual path. So in one sense, a devotee may appear to be fallen, but in another sense, a devotee never falls down because Krishna doesn't allow them to. Okay? The devotee will leave the association of devotees and stop practicing, but Krishna will arrange their fall down. he'll design their fall down in such a way that it's like fall down the stairs, and then Krishna will everything that happens during their fall down is just like a step to bring them back. It's like you fall down the stairs and then you just get back up on the stairs and start going up again. So like that, it's just temporary. So that's why we shouldn't criticize devotees for falling down. We should always just be compassionate to them. If we happen to meet them, just be encouraging, oh, it's really nice to see you, how are you doing? Invite them to the next program or whatever. Just be kind, don't condemn devotees for doing something wrong, because Krishna will rectify them. And if there was a situation where during Prabhupada's presence a devotee fell down, and the devotees were speaking very badly of him and even badly to him, making him feel really terrible for what he had done. And when Prabhupada heard about that, he was very upset, and he called those devotees and he chastised them. He said that, why are you, blaspheming this devotee and telling everybody of the bad things that he's done? Now you've made it impossible for him to come back. You made it very difficult for him to come back. When this happens, you shouldn't. You should just be kind, try to extend yourselves to whatever extent that you can with love to try to invite the person back, and just, don't say bad things, don't criticize that devotee. Just remember the good service that devotee did and pray for them. And Prabhupada would sometimes cry. He would shed tears when a devotee left. because he knew how much suffering they were going to have to go through, and it would pain his heart. But he said, don't be surprised who leaves, but be surprised who stays. So, it's hard to be a devotee. It's really hard. The material energy is very strong. It's very easy to make offenses. It's very easy to take things for granted. And so, it's actually a common thing that people will come and practice Krishna consciousness for some time and then go away for some time. But if that happens to us, God forbid, if for some reason we end up leaving the association of devotees, or offending a devotee, then, or feeling like leaving, sometimes we might feel like leaving. But then if we're intelligent, we'll be like, actually, no, it's not a nice situation out there. Even if I'm struggling here, even if I'm failing here, even if devotees are not treating me very nicely, even if I have this offensive nature that I can't give up, just somehow or other stick around. And if we do realize that we're offending devotees, then there's what we need to do is, Kali Kantaru says the 3 R's. The 3 R's for dealing with our own, offensive nature. If we think we've offended someone, then the first R is recognition. That recognize that, whoa, I really messed up. I treated this devotee in a way that wasn't right, or that, I realized I had some bad intention. Maybe there was a little bit of envy there. And so recognize where we made a mistake, how we mistreated the devotee. And then the second thing is remorse. So the second R is remorse, that we should feel bad about that. We should be like, oh my God, I'm just not nice at all. I feel really terrible about what I did and how what I said might have affected that devotee's growth, their enthusiasm, their faith in Krishna, and so feeling really bad about what we did. Sometimes it's good to feel bad, right? Actually, that's one of the characteristics of the mode of goodness, is that we feel bad about doing something wrong. So, and then the third thing is, third R is rectification. So we recognize that we offended somebody, we feel bad about it, like deep down inside, we really feel terrible that we did that. And then the third thing is, we don't just feel bad and go ahead, but we actually take practical steps to rectify the mistake. So we'll go to the devotee, tell them, Prabhu, I realized that, when I said this, it probably hurt you, or it may have made you feel uncomfortable, or it may have discouraged you. And I'm really sorry, and just really mean it, get into it, and show the person that you understand that you did the wrong thing, and you're totally taking ownership for your mistake. You're taking responsibility for it, and apologize very sincerely. Ask them for their forgiveness, and then try to do something to make it up. Try to do some service to please them, or give them some gift, or give them some special mahaprasadam, or something like that. Or tell them how much you appreciate them and their service. Tell others how much you appreciate them, like that. So these are some things that we can do to protect our bhakti latas, to keep us in Krishna consciousness, to prevent ourselves from this misfortune of, again, returning to the association of monkeys and becoming a monkey, or at least trying to become a monkey, although Krishna will never let us be a monkey in the same way again. So we can always count on Krishna, but let's not take Krishna's protection for granted. Let's try to not make Krishna use the safety net. Let's try to stay up on that tightrope and keep walking and get to the destination on the other side of the rope, which is Krishna's lotus feet. So, yeah, I'll stop there. Any comments or questions? Jackson.
It feels that in the movement, there's many levels to Krishna consciousness. There's many levels to experience Krishna consciousness from, and where one thing, and everyone's going to have a completely different perspective or be experiencing it from a whole different level. How would you recommend, from your experience, meeting other devotees and meeting other devotees where they're at and really being where you are, not trying to be at the level you think you should be at, or being in a space of not judgment, but like witnessing someone who's at a different level of where they are. How would you recommend to be with that phenomena of the different levels?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, we can only be who we are, right? We can only act on the level that we actually are at. You know, if we try to be, you know, a Mahabhagava when we're not there yet, you know, we try to be like a pure devotee, then we'll end up making a fool of ourselves and not making the amount of spiritual advancement that we could actually, you know. It's just like if someone's in first grade and they try to just go into the 10th grade classroom and do the work of the 10th grader, they're going to fail, right? But if they just stay in first grade, you know, do the first grade work, then they're going to actually learn, because it's tailored for that level of, you know, intellectual development. And so they can do it and they can learn and they can go to the next grade. But if they go to 10th grade and they're not going to learn anything, they're not even going to learn what they should have learned in first grade because they're wasting their time in 10th grade. And then when they realize that 10th grade is not working out for them, they have to go back to the beginning of first grade, whereas they should have been in second grade by now. You see? So it's best to just be very conscious of like what level we're on and act according to our level and take those instructions and follow those guidance that's right for us. Yeah. But then you also ask like what to do if we see somebody who's trying to pretend to be more than they are, how to not judge them or something like that.
In witnessing so many different experiences of Krishna consciousness, everyone's in a different place, and so like how do you recommend really being with everyone compassionately, and while also holding true to where you are, and not trying to like, oh, I see him doing this, should I be acting this way? Oh, there's this. Like, how do I really stand true in where I am, while also serving the devotee and being compassionate?
Yeah, nice. I mean, the fact that you're asking the question is like already showing your sincerity and that you have that nature, that compassionate nature. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically what we should be. I mean, you just kind of stated how we should be, is that we should act, you know, on our own level, but at the same time, be compassionate to others and know how to interact with other devotees. Right? So we get a little bit of guidance on that from Rupa Goswami, Nectar of Instruction. He says that somebody who's just, just chanting Hare Krishna, but maybe not following principles, maybe not, you know, exhibiting the best Vaishnava behavior, then we respect them, right? Although they may not be the best association, but we respect them. So we should always respect anyone who's chanting Hare Krishna. And then someone who's actually, you know, an initiated devotee who's seriously made a commitment to the process and is following the process, then we should, you know, offer obeisances to that person. Really, like, appreciate them, and appreciate their commitment, their dedication, their devotion to their guru, to the process, to spiritual life. And then to that person who is, you know, on the highest level of devotional service, who's, you know, like I was saying the other day, free from the propensity to criticize others, who's always, you know, 100% just engaged in service and sharing Krishna consciousness, that person we should faithfully serve and learn from, like that. Of course, we can learn from everyone, but we should know that there are different levels of devotees, and we have to. Those are some very general guidelines, but to navigate our devotee relationships, we have to know how to interact with different levels of devotees. And generally, we'll make friendship with those who are on our own level. Knowing our own level, we'll identify others who are on our own level, and those are the devotees that we'll make friendship with, we'll just relax with, we'll share our realizations with, and we'll serve together. And then those who are junior to us, then we'll try to be compassionate, especially compassionate to them, and you know, encourage them in their so that they can make spiritual advancement. And then those who are senior to us, then we serve, we hear from, and we inquire from, like that. So there's these three levels of relationships. And if we have all three levels of relationships in our life, then we have a very balanced sangha. if we only have friends, then we may be having a lot of fun in Krishna consciousness, but we may not be advancing so much, right? If we think, oh, well then forget about the friends, I want to advance, I want to associate with senior devotees, then we can always just feel like we're kind of walking on eggshells, and we just feel like a black spot on a white sheet or something. So we need people that we can just kind of just really just chill with and be like, and then, but if we only have peers and seniors, then we'll be receiving a lot, but we won't get the benefit of giving, right? There's so much benefit in giving and sharing Krishna consciousness. So we should also find devotees who are junior to us, go out and just or going out every day and going to college campuses and sharing Krishna consciousness with people who are junior, who need it, and that gives them the opportunity to be givers, to be spiritual masters, to be, Bhartma Padarshika gurus and Shiksha gurus to these, college kids who haven't got a clue. So it's nice, to be able to have all these relationships.
Great answers.
Okay. Thank you. Dave?
Thank you so much, Prabhupada, for the wonderful class yet again. And I wanted to you talked about walking on eggshells, and that's exactly what I was, just when I first came in the movement, I was committing offense after offense, and it was kind of a lot. And then now that I'm kind of merging in the community a little bit more, there's still a sense that I never know when I'm gonna step on a landmine. I never know when I'm just being myself, and then all of a sudden, there goes, I committed an offense. And so then I'm feeling of course I have my friends, my peers that I can relax around, but this idea of walking on eggshells, or this fear of being in a landmine and not knowing when it's going to blow up. Some of that is healthy, I think, but I just wanted to ask for your advice, or how to navigate that. Does it stay like that? Even is that a good thing to hold on to? I don't want to, I just wanted to ask for your advice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be careful. I mean, I feel the same way, and I step on landmines all the time, I think. my self-planted landmines, The thing to be cautious about is our intention, right? So if you see a devotee and you feel like that, because Vaishnava Aparad is very subtle, there are different levels of Vaishnava Aparad, and in the Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that even to not be happy when you see a devotee is a Vaishnava Aparad. So if you see a devotee and they're just oh my God, him again, right? Or it's that's an offense. So those are, mental offenses. So we have to check ourselves. We just have to always check ourselves, because it starts like that. That's the start of it. And if we can catch ourselves, if we can kind of nip these things in the bud, and as soon as we see a devotee and we're not happy to see the devotee, we can note that, so we have to reflect on our own reactions and note that and be wow, I'm feeling that way. This is not good. This is actually offensive. It's going to lead to greater offenses. And then just try to think of positive things. Just flood your mind with all the nice things that devotee does, all the ways they've helped you in your spiritual life, all the nice services that they're doing, and just try to counteract that poison, because the antidote for offensive mentality is appreciation. So we just try to counteract the offense by appreciating the person. And then try to do some service and try to publicly glorify that person, or just when you're talking to other people, that same person say, I really like this about this person. So whenever you get the opportunity, it shouldn't sound contrived or awkward, but just not whenever the opportunity naturally arises to praise that person, then do so. But if our intention is to please, and our intention is to make the devotees happy, then then it's unlikely that we're going to make offenses. And if we do, then Krishna will help us. Krishna will he'll give us the ability to recognize that we made an offense, and then we just need to do the 3 R's, and it'll be okay. Vaishnaparad is not irreparable, but we have to repair it. And it means going to the devotee, actually, confronting, going to the devotee personally, and doing those 3 R's. Okay, we better wrap it up. It's getting super late. But thank you all for your attention and for staying. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi.